Thank you. Welcome everyone to the Chimpanzees in Need Emergency Rescue Insider Briefing. Today we're going to be joined by our friends at Chimp Haven. And just a few reminders, all participants are muted today just so that we can hear each other talk, but we want to hear from you. So you can use the chat box and we will be sure to answer your questions either as we go or sometimes in the chat box itself, or at the end, we have time set aside for a Q&A. Well, thanks for joining us today. My name is Erica Fleury, and I serve as the Program Director of the North American Primate Sanctuary Alliance, or NAPSA. NAPSA is a coalition of the leading primate sanctuaries on the continent who care for over 800 rescued and retired apes and monkeys. Since 2019, we have been involved in leading the wildlife way station placement efforts for the chimpanzees. And in early 2020, we made it more official and branded as the Chimpanzees in Need Emergency Rescue Fundraiser. I'm joined today by a few key folks. I will let them introduce themselves, but you're going to hear from Ed Pert, Raina Smith, and Michelle Reininger. So Ed, I'll let you start.
Yeah, hi everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Ed Pert. I'm the regional manager for the California Department of Fish and Wildlife South Coast region. I'm also the project manager for the Wildlife Way Station project for the department. And I just want to thank everyone for your interest in the project, and especially to those who have already contributed in any way. And I really look forward to hearing the presentations today. It's always fun for me to get updated and answer any questions that you might have. And I think Raina is up next.
Yep. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Raina Smith. I'm the president and CEO of Chimp Haven. I've been with Chimp Haven for a little over 5 years now. And I work really closely with Erica. I'm the chair of NAPSA's steering committee, and we're kind of partners in crime here with a lot of other folks on the Chimpanzees in Need fundraising program and campaign. Good to be here. And Michelle?
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Michelle Reininger. I'm the colony director for Chimp Haven. I have been working with Chimp Haven for just over 9 years now, and looking forward to welcoming the new Treetop 10 to Chimp Haven. We're very excited to have this campaign coming to an end and welcome some new chimps. Thanks,
Michelle. Did I cut you off?
No, I was going to hand it back to you, Erica. Sorry.
Okay, I was too excited to begin. And I have to preface this by saying, if I sound a little stuffy, I'm so sorry. I'm getting over a cold, but you know, the beauty of Zoom is that we don't have to be held up by that, and nobody can catch it from me. So we're persevering for the chimps, and we're so excited to be here with you today to highlight the progress that Chimpanzees in Need has made and to celebrate with Chimp Haven what we have ahead of us. So many of you have been with us since the beginning in 2019, in early 2020.
And I always sent to NAPSA.
And we're thrilled. Oh, let's make sure everyone's muted, please. We're so thrilled to share with you where we are in the rehoming efforts. So today's briefing will highlight the efforts to wrap up the chimpanzees' time at the Wildlife Way Station, in addition to what's ahead of us. We're really excited to hear more from Raina and Michelle about what life at Chimp Haven looks like and how the way station chimps will benefit from their relocation. And we're excited to hear from Ed, as always, because he can tell us more about the progress made towards closing down the Wildlife Way Station. So before I pass it over to Ed to explain things a little bit more, I want to tell you where we are with the campaign. So for those of you that might be new, the Wildlife Way Station was an unaccredited refuge and was not a member of NAPSA, but when they announced their unexpected closure in 2019, NAPSA quickly got involved with the placement efforts. There were over 475 animals on site, and while most were successfully placed at reputable and accredited sanctuaries, and we were even happy to find homes for 16 monkeys, there were 42 chimpanzees with nowhere to go. 42. The chimpanzees can't stay at the way station for many reasons, including outdated infrastructure, an aging facility, an insufficient water source, and an extreme fire risk of the area, which had caused the way station to need to evacuate numerous times over the years. And so when the way station shut, all accredited and reputable chimp sanctuaries were at capacity. Physical expansions were necessary to fit in more chimpanzees. And chimpanzees require very specialized, expensive care and housing. So a fundraiser was necessary. And that's where NAPSA stepped in. Chimpanzees in Need began with a grant from the Arcus Foundation, and we will be forever grateful to them for that. And that permitted NAPSA to organize things and hire consultants to direct the fundraiser and ensure its success. The clock was ticking very rapidly at this point, and we knew we had to act quickly. The effort is fiscally sponsored by a conservation-based nonprofit called Seventh Generation Advisors, and an ongoing collaboration between NAPSA, California Department of Fish and Wildlife, the sanctuaries taking the chimps and who have already taken the chimps, the wildlife way station itself, national chimpanzee experts who have overseen our placement decisions, and the foundations and donors all are making it work. And we've said it before, but I'll say it again, it truly takes a village. So thus far, Chimpanzees in Need has raised over $4 million and rehomed 30 of the chimpanzees. We are thrilled to be at this point. I can't say it enough. Now, 2 of the original 42 chimpanzees passed away due to medical reasons at the wildlife way station. So there's 10 left, and the final 10 chimpanzees will be rescued in the next 2 months. So by the end of this year, we will have them all rescued, and that feels incredible. We are calling the last 10 the Treetop 10, and they are headed, of course, to Chimp Haven. So you'll hear more about that. But we had a busy summer. Over the summer, we moved the Sunrise 7 to Save the Chimps, where they are settled right into Florida life very quickly and have been happy and thriving in their new home. I actually just yesterday saw a new video of chimpanzee Jake playing with a new friend named Tonka at Save the Chimps. And Tonka was also rescued over the summer from pretty dire circumstances. And the two have made quick friends. They were grooming. They looked so happy and relaxed. And that just fed my soul and told me that this is exactly why we're moving these chimpanzees. Now, we also, Center for Great Apes welcomed the Great 8 1 year ago. And they have since posted some fantastic photos and updates on their social media channels, including some pictures of Jeter. You might remember Jeter because he was a solitarily housed chimp who was unable to socialize with other chimps at the way station. But Save the Chimps, Center for Great Apes specializes in those more humanized types of chimpanzees. And so they have plans to introduce Jeter to a gentle group of females in the coming weeks so he can finally have some good chimpanzee friends. And that's going to be just life-changing for him. Chimpanzee Sanctuary Northwest welcomed 9 way station chimps over the last few years, and their blog also has tons of heartwarming photos and videos of their new lives. It's undeniable that these chimpanzees are happy and thriving in their new homes, and soon at Chimpanzee Sanctuary Northwest, they'll be able to enjoy a brand new open-topped outdoor habitat. Now, they're still finishing construction on that. And so we're working really hard to get them the funds they need to ensure those chimpanzees can enjoy the beautiful outdoors in Washington. It's really night and day to see how these chimpanzees are living now. And that's what's driven us forward. I mean, when I see videos of chimpanzees walking on grass for the first time, you all know it goes right through you. And it's undeniable that these chimps have a brighter future because of Chimpanzees in Need and our sanctuary partners and the donors that make it all possible. Also, over the summer, we were very happy to be featured in National Geographic's article titled, "What Do We Owe Former Lab Chimps?" And if you haven't read that yet, you should. They did a great job. We expect more exciting coverage over the next few months as we move the final way station chimps. And it just seems that everyone loves learning about chimpanzees headed to a brighter future. So let's hear from Ed next about what's been going on at the Wildlife Way Station and with the state of California.
Yeah, thank you, Erica. So I think many of you or most of you have attended these before, and I'll try to give you a really brief update and we'll get to the good stuff. But in case some of you have not heard this before, I just want to mention that the department became involved in this effort when the Wildlife Way Station could no longer raise enough funds to care for the animals, and they had to surrender what we call their restricted species permit. And since then, we have been covering many of the costs for the past 3.5 years for things like food and water and utilities and vet services and site security and all those kind of things. But thankfully, the caretakers were able to stick around. And so we did not have to do any of that because we're not, I guess, qualified to do that. And so the other good piece of news is that most of the staff who were at the Wildlife Way Station at the time have found other jobs because we only have 10 chimps left and there's not as much work to be done, thankfully. But these people are as dedicated as they come. I mean, I just can't emphasize that enough. They have been sticking around for as long as they need to. And some of those folks are going to have to stick around for longer than when the chimps are gone, because there's going to be a lot of work to be done to actually close the facility down and, sort of put it to rest. So but they all have jobs lined up. And so if any of you are worried about that, there's no need to worry. And that's great news. But I can tell you that it's a really great feeling, though, that we seem to have made it through another fire season without having to evacuate. That's always something that makes us nervous and takes a lot of preparation to be ready for. We're never fully out of the woods, though, but it looks promising at this point in the year. And if all goes as planned, the last 10 chimps will be moved by sometime around the end of the year. It's going to be really wonderful to see that happen. I can't imagine how we're all going to feel about that. It just feels a little surreal at this point after all we've been through. But just again, I wanted to thank you all for your support. Really appreciate that. It's hard to believe what we've accomplished here, and there's no way we could have done it without all of your support. So you've really made a difference for these chimps. And with that, I'm looking forward to hearing the other presentations today. But I guess back to you, Erica. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. You said it well. Surreal is a great word for how it feels to be at this point, thanks to the donors. So now we're going to hear from Raina and Michelle about life at Chimp Haven.
All right. Well, after nearly 3 years, we're really excited to welcome the Treetop 10 from the way station before year end. I think we're just weeks away from the first transport, and we're very excited. For those of you who are not familiar with Chimp Haven, I'm going to take just a few minutes to tell you a little bit about our sanctuary and the fabulous things that are in store for the way station chimps when they arrive. And then my colleague Michelle is going to share her story with you about when she worked for a sanctuary in San Antonio that closed, similar to the way station, and how she followed a very special group of chimps to Chimp Haven. All right, next slide. So Chimp Haven is located on 200 forested acres just inside a nature park outside of Shreveport, Louisiana. And we are home to over 300 chimpanzees, most of whom are retired from biomedical research. And this makes us the world's largest chimpanzee sanctuary. And our chimps range in age from 5-year-old little Carly, who was an oops baby, to the 62-year-old wild-born chimps that we call our golden oldies. And what's unique about Chimp Haven is that we have nearly 30 different social groups or family groups of chimpanzees. And the group sizes range from 5 chimps, which would be, a smallish size group, to our largest group of 20. And we have an average group size of 11. And unlike in some of the research facilities, we want to house our chimps in pretty large male-female social groups, which really mimics how they live in the wild. And this kind of creates what we call a fission-fusion environment for the chimps. And that just means that they're living in larger social groups. So the chimpanzees can form relationships with certain chimps and do certain activities. Like, for example, maybe the males get together in the morning and they patrol their enclosure and look for any kind of animals or, anything that's not supposed to be in their enclosure. And then in the afternoon, maybe they break off and they're hanging out with some different friends and they're buddies with those friends and do grooming sessions. And then they sleep with other chimps at night. And that's what we call fission fusion. And with this many family groups, we are sure to find the right fit for the way station chimpanzees. So at Chimp Haven, we have about 65 staff members, most of whom work in our veterinary, behavior, and husbandry teams, and they provide expert personalized care to our chimpanzee residents. Our staff knows all their names, they know their likes and dislikes, and they really cater to their every whim. If you visit Chimp Haven, you'll notice that we offer a variety of different living spaces, including the big multi-acre forested habitats, but we also have open air corrals with really super tall, climbing structures, as well as play yards and jungle gyms. There are really a lot of different living options to suit all of their individual preferences and needs. Most importantly, though, our chimpanzees have the freedom to choose how they spend their days, whether it's, long grooming sessions with their besties, maybe napping outside in the sun, climbing trees, or playing chase. But one thing's for sure, it's a life lived with other chimpanzees. And you can also get a behind the scenes look at Chimp Haven and some of our social groups and the really interesting hierarchy that's involved with chimpanzee social groups. If you want to watch a television show called Meet the Chimps, which is on Disney Plus, it features Chimp Haven, Life at the Sanctuary, and a lot of our social groups. So with over 300 chimps at Chimp Haven, that is over 300 unique personalities as well. Take, for example, Queenie Bee. Queenie Bee joined us from a research facility in San Antonio, and she is considered the sanctuary's nosiest neighbor. Our care staff every year creates what we call the Chimpy Awards right around the time that we have the Academy Awards or the Oscars. And Queenie Bee was voted most likely to know the good gossip. So when she's not like high on her play structure, spying on her neighbors, you can catch Queenie Bee playing, catch with the care staff. She'll often, reach way up high and catch her bananas, her onions, her sweet potatoes during the morning food toss. That's Queenie Bee. Next up, we've got one of my personal favorites, Jeff Lebowski. And Jeff is super chill. He's a super chill guy. He was voted best hair and most handsome, and he certainly knows it. And when he's not posing for the camera, he's definitely, teasing one of his favorite group mates, Kirsten. Then we have Taffy, and Taffy is a very strong, tough girl, and she hangs out with what we call her girl gang members, other fellow tough, smart female chimps. And she was voted most likely to be a fitness guru, as you can see in this photo. She's got the muscle mass and she is a strong, fit chimp. And then finally, we have Juan, and Juan is everyone's favorite sweet old man. I mean, look at that face. Juan was voted most delightful, which really suits him well, as he's always happy to see his caregivers, and he's just such a sweetie and has an affinity for hats. Everybody loves Mr. Juan. Next. Some of you may know that a few years ago, Chimp Haven embarked on a $20 million expansion campaign to make room for the remaining government-owned chimps who are eligible to come to Sanctuary. So at that point, we were getting really full and we needed to expand. And through this expansion, we were able to welcome over 100 additional chimps. And this includes, next slide, our latest arrival, and her name is Zoe. And Zoe just came to us a couple weeks ago from a research facility outside of Austin, Texas. And Zoe is a rather large lady. She tips the scales at about 175 pounds, and she should be weighing more like 110 pounds. And due to her size, one of our maintenance staff members, Mary, had to customize or weld an extra large transport cage for Miss Zoe that we dubbed her chariot. Next slide. So we're hoping Zoe is going to be a future chimpanzee enthusiast, and chimpanzee is one of our programs that we have to help the chimps take off a little bit of weight. So on this slide, you can see here, we've got Crystal, and Crystal came to us from a research facility really quite overweight. And over time, she was able to work with Robin, her human caregiver. And they would walk the perimeter of her enclosure several times a week. They can do squats. And then, through exercise and a very healthy diet, Crystal was able to drop about 60 pounds, which is really cool. So we're really hoping that Zoe will also become one of our biggest losers. So Zoe and Crystal are two of our female residents, but let's hear about some of the boys. So Michelle, do you want to share your story?
Absolutely. Hey, everybody. I'm Michelle Reininger again, and I'm anxious to share my story with you. When I heard the announcement that Wildlife Way Station was closing its doors, this had a very personal impact on me because I actually came from a very similar situation back around 2010. Prior to working at Chimp Haven, I actually used to work at a sanctuary outside of San Antonio, Texas. And that sanctuary, unfortunately, had to close its doors, and that left approximately 400 animals in need of a new home. 16 of those animals were chimpanzees that actually share a common link with those that are at Wildlife Way Station, and that they all came from LEMSIP, a research laboratory in New York. So I've always kind of felt a connection to the Wildlife Way Station chimpanzees simply because of that, because all the chimpanzees that were very near and dear to my heart came from the same facility. So when Raina first brought up the idea of trying to find some capacity at Chimp Haven so that we could try to house some of the way station chimps here, there was absolutely no way that I could say no or turn away from it. We had to make it happen. My mind traveled immediately back to 2010 and the feelings that I had at that time of worry and desperation of trying to find homes for all of the animals, but in particular the chimpanzees. As Erica explained earlier, chimpanzees really require a lot of specialized care, both due to their strength, intelligence, and their size, as well as their emotional needs. That care can sometimes be very expensive, and it also requires a staff that has experience and knowledge to provide for them so they can live out their best life. And so that's always a challenge when trying to find homes for animals such as the chimpanzees. So, oh, sorry, next slide. On this slide, you can see two males, Pierre and Murphy. They were part of the group of chimpanzees that I worked with at the sanctuary in Texas. And in the lab, both of these boys were actually used in HIV and hepatitis studies. So they both carry those viruses in their blood, which made them even more difficult to find homes for. But I will never forget the day that Chimp Haven stepped forward and said that they would take our boys and give them a permanent home. So the feeling of relief that I had, just knowing they'd be taken care of and that they would be safe, I can't express in words. It still makes me emotional. So we'll keep going. 2 years after the boys moved to Chimp Haven, the last of the animals at the Texas Sanctuary were placed, and I was actually able to follow, and I joined them here at Chimp Haven and was reunited with my old friends. So that was pretty cool. And then Pierre, who's also known as Big Papa, or Papa Pierre, he's a very tough, he plays like a tough guy, but he's actually a big teddy bear. And then Murphy is the gentle soul that also was living with him at the time. And the two of them were housed in an area where Pierre was able to see a female by the name of Angela. You can see a picture of Angela here. We all affectionately call her Big Ange. Angela came in with another group. She had her own group, which she lived with, and Pierre, for whatever reason, was instantly smitten with her. Myself looking at her, I mean, she's not, she doesn't necessarily, she's not necessarily, in my eyes, the most attractive chimpanzee. She's missing hair in several places, and she's a little bit overweight, but Pierre didn't care about any of that. He was smitten with her, and it was love at first sight. He would always move in his enclosure to where he could be in the closest proximity to Angela. He would take these blankets and he would rip strips in the blankets and actually weave strips of blanket in the mesh where she could see them, and basically did everything he could to try to gain Angela's attention. But unfortunately for him, she was not that interested. And so we decided we needed to find Pierre some other friends and get him into a bigger family group, which is one thing that we really try to do here, is to build those big families and provide those opportunities for the chimps to have that greater chances for interaction with other chimps and potentially find their best friend. And so we started out originally, we got Pierre and Murphy in with two other males, Hulk and Rero. And then we introduced those 4 boys into an even larger group. We introduced 6 females. You can see 6 of those or 5 of those females here on this slide, and some pictures of them. It actually went really well, even though the boys had always only lived with boys, the females had only lived with females. We got them together and it was just an instant success. They were running around, hugging, laughing, playing. It was really, really cool to watch them at one point with Care sitting, just waiting for the females to come over to him. And then he kind of like tapped his hands on the ground, inviting them to play. And then they eventually got into these sessions, what we call patty cake, where they're sitting there slapping one another's hands and just laughing and having a really good time. And so that's one of the things that we really love to see here at Chimp Haven, is when the chimps have that opportunity where they can just interact with others and just build those relationships and get those good friendships going. And it makes their day better. And again, they have those choices of who they want to interact with. And so we're giving them those opportunities. So we then moved in, got 4 other males with them. This was a group of bachelor males. And we had, again, great success with them coming in because these 4 males were actually they were not very dominant males whatsoever. So they went in perfectly in with this group. And we actually had a bromance that started out of this group interaction. And it was Randy, who you can see on the left there, is actually a very large male. Could be very intimidating if he wanted to be, but it's like Randy doesn't understand how large he is. And so it's really cool that Randy's just a sweet, soft soul. And he immediately became best buddies with Rero. Rero is not as large as Randy. And so it's kind of interesting to see how Randy follows Rero around like his little brother and wants to do everything that Rero does. And Rero started out, was actually a very shy, almost introverted male. And just to see him blossom and see his personality come out as he grows more confident, having Randy there shadowing him and being his friend has been really, really cool to see. And then we also have Devin, who is a very outgoing young male who loves to play, and having him play with someone like Murphy, who's an older male who generally kind of just likes to hang out and lay in his hammock. But Devin gets in there and is like, hey, no, come on, let's play. And so watching the 2 of them just be active, run around and interact with one another is really great to see, because it's good for Murphy because it keeps him active and keeps him healthy as well. So it's really, really been a great interaction for the entire group, which currently actually we did another mini introduction to that group, and currently Pierre's group went from 2 individuals, now stands at a group of 17 individuals, and is actually one of our larger groups. So and they're a really wonderful group. I know care staff really enjoy watching them and just seeing their interactions every day, because they just have so many interesting personalities, which is really cool to be able to get them all together into a nice family group. And so that's my story, and I will hand it back over to Erica.
Thanks, Michelle. When you got choked up, I totally know that feeling. That's happened to me so many times when I talk about closing out this campaign. I think it happened one time on one of these calls, actually, when we announced that the chimps were going to save the chimps, because it was like one more solution, one more group saved. And I want to point out too, you were talking about these great social groups and how you've combined social groups to get bigger groups of these chimps. And that's going to be something that's so important for the way station chimps. The treetop 10 is comprised of a group of 8 and a group of 2 chimps. And I mean, 2 chimpanzees is not sufficient for a social group for anyone. And so I'm really excited for those chimps to have more opportunities to make friends and meet new chimps and just learn more about themselves as they become more socialized with others at Chimp Haven. And that's one of the huge benefits of moving to Chimp Haven. So once the last 10 move to Chimp Haven, we will officially have homes for all of the chimpanzees. And this ensures their safety for the rest of their lives, which is more stability than they've ever had. Because if you think about it, most of them, actually all of the treetop 10 were born in a laboratory and then sent to the way station where there was a lot of instability. So we're just so excited to see this happen and to support the way station in successfully closing their doors. The last portion of the fundraising that we need to accomplish will help to cover the remaining construction costs at sanctuaries and ongoing care for 1 year for the chimpanzees. So what does that mean? I know everyone wants to know what's the dollar amount. We've raised over $4 million, but what we have left to raise is 675,000 more. Okay. After raising 4 million, I know we can raise 675,000 more. And what that breaks down to is a little over 100,000 to go to Chimpanzee Sanctuary Northwest so that they can complete their construction efforts. And it's so important that we get that to them so that they can complete their outdoor habitat, so the chimps can enjoy that outdoor habitat, and so that we can thank the sanctuary for sticking out their necks for these 9 chimpanzees and taking them before we even had the funding for them to build everything. So that will be really exciting. We also have 570,000 more to raise to go towards 1 year of chimpanzee care in their new homes. And that is certainly the least we can do to thank the sanctuaries for taking them. And of course, that covers 1 year of care, and these chimpanzees will be living many more years in the sanctuaries. So that is really something that we look forward to doing to thank the chimpanzee sanctuaries. I want to point out that all funds raised go directly to chimpanzee care and rehoming. So no humans are being paid through this fundraiser. And our fundraising partner, Seventh Generation Advisors, is managing all the funds pro bono. So if you want to help the chimps, this is how. You can go to chimpsinneed.org. You can get access to our donation page through NAPSA social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I hope all of you will consider making a year-end gift to support us in finishing out this ambitious campaign. Ed said it was surreal to be towards the end, and gosh, it really is, because there were so many months and years where we didn't know how we would get here, but we're here because of you. We can't thank you enough. We know there are so many causes that need help and attention right now, and we're just so grateful for your involvement in the safe rehoming of the wildlife way station chimpanzees. Please share this opportunity with your friends and neighbors. I see some of you sharing our social media posts, and that's what I mean. We're so close, and every donation, no matter how small, every donation we receive gets us closer to ensuring a safe and healthy future for all the chimpanzees at the Wildlife Way Station. So now I think we have plenty of time to open it up for Q&A. I've seen some questions coming in here and there, and we have Cassie Carter, who I did not thank yet. I should have thanked her in the very beginning, but she's the mastermind behind this call, and she's been monitoring everything, and she'll help us out with these questions. Hi, Cassie. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Erica. And that was really wonderful. I haven't seen some of Michelle's slides before this week, and it's just really wonderful to see all of that. One question that we've seen, and something that's top of mind for me, is how amazing it is that Disney decided to do a series on Meet the Chimps. And we've had some questions for Raina around, have you seen a benefit or a boost of this? And is there going to be a season 2? Because we're on the edge of our seats.
Yeah, we would love to have a season 2, but unfortunately, I think Disney's got other plans with their big Marvel characters that they have right now. So no season 2 yet, but we'll definitely keep you posted. I mean, it's just been a great way. The show has been a great way to reach, followers and interested parties around the world, actually, who love chimps and really kind of want an inside look at these social groups and the interesting dynamics that occur in these social groups. So it's been a really nice feature for Chimp Haven. One question that I do get quite a bit related to the way station chimps is, when the chimps come from the way station to Chimp Haven, people want to know, will they stay in those social groups, or do we split them up? And coming from the way station, there's a group of 8 and a pair, and they're in separate groups. So for sure, that pair we want to introduce to other chimpanzees, right? Because we want a larger social group for all the reasons that we talked about earlier, just many opportunities to build more relationships. The group of 8, we're not quite sure yet if that group will stay on its own, or if we introduce the pair to the group of 8, or we take the 8 and introduce it to another group. Really, it's all about settling them in at Chimp Haven and just kind of getting to know their personalities and their little quirks and their preferences. And then the care staff come together and discuss all the different options and who might make a good family group for each of those groups coming from the way station. And then we start putting those groups together. So, but we definitely won't split up the individual chimps. So the group of 8 will stay intact and the pair will stay together. And then we just see if we add to their families.
Mhm. The Wildlife Way Station didn't have the resources or the space to do introductions and change the social groups the way that other sanctuaries do. So I think it'll be interesting to see what happens long-term at Chimp Haven and see what's best for these individual chimps. And that's the key, is that it's individualized care. So I know Michelle and her team will know what to do.
And Erica, we do have a comment about Meet the Chimps and Sparky success story that was shared, and how moving that was for people to see. That
was a great show. And someone needs to tell Disney that rescued chimpanzees are way more interesting than Marvel superheroes. I mean, I don't know. I see clapping. Yeah, let's get a note to Disney on that.
I was thinking the same. And then another question that's top of mind, I think, for some of us is, how do we sign up for the fitness program at Chimp Haven? Because I think that most of us have our pandemic weight that we want to shed. Can we work with Robin to do the same?
Exactly. Lots of walking and lots of chimp squats going on right now with the chimpanzees. And I think the humans are getting their workout too over here.
You know what I'll do? I'll put the URL in the chat for chimpsinneed.org, because we have another video if you want to watch more things on your screen. We've got our short documentary. It's only about 7 minutes from filmmaker Sean Munson about chimpanzees in need. And he visited the way station when I think there were 32 chimps left. And he brought the actors Joaquin Phoenix and Rooney Mara to take it all in, and their reactions to the situation are very telling. And you can see, you know, what the living conditions are like at the Wildlife Way Station, and compare that to life at Chimp Haven, and you'll see why we're doing this. So I'll put that in the link right here. It's on the sidebar of our website, chimpsinneed.org.
We also have a few more minutes for other questions. If you have questions, feel free to drop them into the chat, and we will discuss.
Yeah, we'll be very eager to share news of the first group's arrival at Chimp Haven just as soon as we can.
And then, Erica, can you tell us just a little bit more? You mentioned that part of the fundraising that's left to do is for a year of care for the chimps. Can you tell us a little bit more about what the sanctuaries are committing to when they take on a chimpanzee and what that looks like?
Yeah, well, chimpanzees have very long lives in captivity. Most of the chimpanzees at the Wildlife Way Station are in their 30s, but they can live to be 50, 60 in a sanctuary. We estimate, you know, a general number for what it costs to care for a chimpanzee in a sanctuary is around $25,000 per year for one chimp. So we are raising that for the chimpanzees going to sanctuaries from the way station. And that's important. You know, the sanctuaries are certainly extending themselves much further than that to care for these chimpanzees throughout what's left of their lives. And we certainly hope it's many, many more years of happiness in their new homes. But the least we can do is $25,000 per chimp, just as a little going away present for the sanctuaries taking them.
Almost like somebody referred to it once as a dowry.
I don't care what we call it. I just want to thank the sanctuaries because they're making this happen. If they were not taking these chimpanzees, I mean, we didn't have alternative options for where they could go. And it was important to us that they only go to accredited, reputable, experienced sanctuaries who know how to care for chimps. You know, we had some folks who meant really well and said, oh, I'll start a chimpanzee sanctuary to take them. And we're like, no, they need to, chimpanzee care is not something everyone can do. It's very expensive and challenging. And I know Michelle and Raina know what I mean. And so it's important that they go to a place where they won't have to move ever again and where their welfare is the top priority. So that's what we've done so far for 30 of the chimpanzees and just 10 more, which really does feel surreal.
And a question just came in about weather and climate. And it's so interesting, Simon, that you asked that question, because I was thinking the same thing. And I was going to ask Raina, we know some big storms have come through the Southeast, and wondering, you know, does that impact the chimpanzees? How do they feel about big storms? Do you guys have to deal with some of the impacts of some of the storms coming through?
Oh, yeah, and I'm going to hand this one over to Michelle because she knows firsthand what the weather fluctuations in Louisiana means to chimpanzee care. Michelle.
Yeah, definitely. Weather can be a challenge. I know here in Louisiana, we get a lot of rain and we get heat and humidity during the summertime. The chimps, for the most part, they're very comfortable. Majority of our buildings are climate controlled, so they just go inside. And they always have free choice to go in or out whenever they want to. They're never locked out of an area unless we're actually cleaning it. So thankfully, for the most part, like the Gulf Coast will get hurricanes, but typically by the time it gets to Louisiana, or our part of Louisiana, I should say, it's typically going to be just heavy rain. We did, however, a couple of years ago have Hurricane Laura that came through and was a hurricane by the time it got to Shreveport. So we had a lot of heavy wind and rain. The chimps, well, I shouldn't say all the chimps. We had one chimp who wanted to sit out in the culvert during the hurricane, but everyone else was inside. We locked in the ones that were in the habitats, any of the open top enclosures, but for the most part, they remained inside where they were safe, and they didn't seem to have any issue with it. And anytime we have any sort of storm, we always have a group of volunteer staff who will stay overnight with the chimps and weather out the storm with them. So they're on hand, keeping an eye on everything, making sure that they're safe and they have everything that they need. So there are challenges with it, obviously, but we're prepared to meet all of those challenges. And one thing that we don't get very frequently is snow. Of course, 2021, we had the snowpocalypse, as I think most of us here in the South called it, but we managed to get through that as well. So it's just every challenge that we face, we learn from, and we're ready for anything else. Hopefully we never see that again, but I'm not a fan of snow. So, but yeah, there are definitely challenges, but thankfully we have a great team of people who are ready to meet them.
Yeah, and that's another reason why it was so important to us that the chimps only go to accredited sanctuaries, because that ensures, part of accreditation is ensuring that there are strong emergency plans in place for snowpocalypses and anything that could happen, and making sure that there's generators and backup food and water and meds and all the what ifs can be taken care of, because that's really important. And that's something that I think the way station struggled with at times very publicly. So we're feeling really good about these chimpanzees and what the level of care is going to be for them going forward.
Yeah, and if I could follow up on that just briefly, just for the folks that don't know the full story, when the wildlife way station shut down, we had word got out, and we got calls. This is the California Department of Fish and Wildlife, from all kinds of crazy places, Tiger King type of roadside zoos and everywhere else, saying, "Oh, we'll take your animals and we'll come and get them." And I'm really proud of the state of California for giving us the opportunity to find quality homes for all the animals, not just the chimps. But I will admit, we did not know what we were getting into with the chimps. That was a different animal, so to speak, altogether compared to the others, because of the difficulty it is in finding them new homes. So I think the departments, or the state and department, have spent probably $4 to $5 million on, maintaining those, finding new homes for those animals and for the chimps, caring for them and all of that. So I think we can all feel good about the fact that the state of California, all the way up to the governor's office, literally, who supported this project, has allowed us to do this the right way. So I just wanted to add that.
Amen.
Toot the state's horn, not the department. That it was really the state of California that allowed the department to do that. So it's a good thing.
Yeah, Ed, we were so relieved that the state trusted our guidance on where was and was not a good place for the chimps to go. That was huge. And you're right, it would have been a lot less expensive for you to just ship them off to anyone who could have taken them, but that wasn't the right thing to do for the chimps.
Right. And the good thing was, Erica, you all were there to help us make those decisions and make us understand better the need to do what we're doing, and to make sure that those chimps found the right places. And the rest is history, or almost history now. So it's just really been gratifying from that perspective all around.
Yeah. And, none of us knew what we were getting into, I don't think. Keep in mind, the way station shut down before the pandemic hit.
Right.
And we were already, I think, intimidated by what was ahead of us. But then the pandemic changed everything. And we're still seeing the repercussions of that in the, rapidly inflated construction costs, transportation costs. I mean, that's really what dragged this out much longer than we would have liked, but it's out of our hands, right? So we're doing the best we can and just getting the chimps out when we can.
Mhm.
That's because of the donors.
Yep.
So, thank you,
Exactly.
thank you, thank you. We can't say it enough. It's just miraculous that we've made it this far thanks to everyone helping out.
One of the things that we're excited to do too, when the way station chimps arrive at Chimp Haven, is really give them their first in a really long time head to toe physical exam. So we've got 9 people on our veterinary team. So we've got 2 vets and then, pharmacy and vet techs as well. And we give our chimpanzees an annual physical. And that means, taking their blood work, doing dental, doing good cleanings, extractions, ultrasound of all of their major organs, their liver, kidneys, intestines, all of that, trimming their nails, treating skin conditions, and then, treating any kind of parasites that they might have as well before we introduce them into the colony, and just giving them a good bill of health before we do any kind of, stressful introductions and things like that. So we're excited to be able to, get our hands on them and take a close look. And then a lot of these chimps too, are aging. And so we treat all kinds of conditions very similar that you would see in humans as well, like arthritis and different things like that with laser therapy and so forth. So they'll have really good medical care, once they get to the sanctuary, and will be on a customized plan, just depending on their health circumstances as well.
Most of these chimpanzees have never been on grass. And so, they came from a laboratory, and then at the way station, they're on concrete. And I've seen video and photos of some of the chimpanzees walking on grass for the first time. And that can go a bunch of different ways. Some of the more braver individuals just run out and love it. Others are more cautious, and some, it can take months for them to put their toe on the grass for the first time because it's different. And as crazy as that seems, that a wild animal that should be living, in trees can be afraid of grass, that's the unfortunate reality of the life that they were born into. So I'm really excited for them to explore the treetops as the treetop 10, and have it not just be a name, but have them live that life that they so deserve. So we have a question. I see one from Simon. Why do you think heart disease is so prevalent in older chimps? And I bet Michelle could answer that one.
Yeah, heart disease is probably one of the biggest killers with chimps, especially the young, or especially male chimps. Part of that reason is going to be because of the more sedentary lifestyle than what they would be normally having in the wild, as well as sometimes it can also be affected by diet. We here at Chimp Haven, that's one of the things that we monitor. We're actually, in fact, we've started a new program with the chimps in our PRT program, our positive reinforcement training program, to get echocardiograms on the chimps in order to help us to try to determine if any of the chimps have any sort of health issues that we can help them with. But also another thing with chimpanzees is they're actually considered geriatric at the age of 35. So we have some chimps that are in their 40s, 50s, and even early 60s. And so these are old for chimpanzees. And so of course you're going to see a lot of those health problems like what Raina was mentioning, the arthritis, kidney issues and things like that, just because they are so much older than what they would normally live in the wild.
Yeah, thank you, Michelle. We have another question here. If the government or any of the labs ever contribute funds? I know for this campaign specifically, no, that the answer to that is no. The chimpanzees all came from a laboratory in New York that was owned by NYU and is since shut down. We have tried to reach out to NYU, and that National Geographic article that I mentioned it even quotes me as saying something like, why doesn't NYU contribute towards their care? I don't know. We've had alumni write to the school to request this, and so far have not received anything. The government also does not contribute to the wildlife way station chimps. I don't know if Raina wants to briefly mention Chimp Haven's unique relationship as the National Chimpanzee Sanctuary, because that is a little different than the other sanctuaries we've worked with.
Yeah, so Chimp Haven is designated as the National Chimpanzee Sanctuary. And basically, we have a contract with the National Institutes of Health to welcome any of the NIH-owned chimpanzees that were living in research facilities and eligible to retire to sanctuaries. So once the chimpanzees that are owned by NIH come to Chimp Haven, the federal government will pay for 75% of the direct care costs for those chimps for the rest of their lives, which is really nice. And then Chimp Haven matches that, you know, with 25% of care costs donated from private supporters.
Thank you, Raina. Do we have any more questions? This is a quieter group. Usually we have lots of questions building up while we're talking. Maybe they've heard us so many times that they know the answers already.
It looks like there's a couple more though.
Can the donations towards chimps in need be dedicated to a specific sanctuary in the group? Absolutely. And we're still fundraising. None of the sanctuaries have all of their needs met. So while we've finished construction for, let's say, Center for Great Apes, we still are raising funds for their aftercare. So absolutely, you can email me through, my name is Erica, through NAPSA's website to ask that specifically and let me know what you're thinking, and I will make that happen. Right now, the campaign is set up so that when you donate, we put it towards where it's most needed. You can also donate directly to the sanctuary partners. We just ask that you let us know, let me know, or let the sanctuary know so that they can tell me and we can know that it's for chimps in need specifically. And someone also asked, Crystal asked, can you talk about how training plays a role in the chimps' healthcare? Michelle, that's you again, I think.
Yeah, sure. So we have a positive reinforcement training program in which it's positive. So basically the chimps have the choice whether or not they want to participate. They're not punished if they don't want to, but they do get rewards if they do participate in the behaviors. And what we're doing is we're training them for specific medical behaviors a lot of times. We'll train them to present body parts like their hand, their feet. They can be trained to put their chest up against the mesh, so then we can actually use a stethoscope and we can get their or read their heart rate. We are also doing training for presenting their ear to the mesh. We can get temperatures. We're now training them for blood pressure cuffs. We're training them for all different things like that to help us to help them with their health. On top of that, we also have, as Raina mentioned earlier, we have a chimpanzee program where we will do target training, where we get the chimps just to move with us to walk around their enclosures. We also use laser pointer training where they'll, to get them again to move. And we can train them to do squats where they'll stand and they sit and stand and sit. Things like that, just basic things to get them to move, get them to be active, and to help them, especially to help that heart, to keep that heart going, pumping strong, and to keep them healthy, and so that they can live a longer life.
What's great about NAPSA is that our member sanctuaries will often talk on our monthly meetings about these practices and what works best. So if someone has a chimpanzee who's a little resistant to physical activity, we can share best practices and like ideas for how to involve that individual more and get them healthier. So I like to see that on our calls because it just shows that, you know, the chimps are always benefiting and the animals in our sanctuaries are always benefiting from that group interaction. What else? Let's see.
And Erica, one thing that I want to just sort of underscore that you mentioned a moment ago in terms of designating to the different sanctuaries too, is that one of our dreams and hopes for the Chimps in Need campaign is that we will be raising awareness about just how amazing these animals are and how much goes into taking care of them, and that everybody who has engaged in this campaign will continue to be supporters of the sanctuaries, helping them do their work, because it's an ongoing effort. Most of the sanctuaries are raising funds year to year to take care of the chimpanzees, and it really truly takes a village. So we hope that you will all stay engaged and connected with the sanctuaries in this process.
Chimpanzees in Need will eventually end as a fundraiser once we hit our goals. And that will be relatively soon, you know, end of this year, beginning of next year. But of course, the chimpanzees, the sanctuaries work continues. And so That's a great point, Cassie. We thank everyone. We know a lot of you have been longtime donors of the sanctuaries as it is, and hopefully some new folks will be too. Well, if there's no more questions, I think we're nearing the end here.
Yep, we're at the top of the hour.
Okay. Oh, thank you. Katie said such heroic collaborative efforts on behalf of the chimps. Thank you for sharing with us today. And I can't stress enough what a collaboration this is between groups that have never worked together before, from, you know, the Department of Fish and Wildlife to the sanctuaries to the fundraising consultancies. It's been really wonderful. And these chimps don't know it, but they're lucky to have such a village behind them. So thank you, everyone. Please visit chimpsinneed.org to help, to learn more, to give us feedback, and follow us on social media. Follow NAPSA, because I share pictures of the chimps in their new homes and the ones that we still have yet to rescue. And soon we will be telling you about 8 more and then 2 more that are safe. So please cross your fingers until you hear that, because, you know, stuff happens in life, and, you know, we already weathered a pandemic. We just have to get them out. So we're close to the end here. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you
Thank you,
all.
everyone. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Good job.
We're done.
All right.
Michelle
the
left
stopwatch
us. Michelle was great.
Yeah, very, very great.
Yeah. No, I think